Hey guys, my name is Mitsumiyo, and welcome to our episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that can be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today is, what are your thoughts on #SaveSiege? Do you think that Ubisoft needs to do more to save the game? So I've been hearing this a lot lately. Many big pro players and YouTubers have been talking about lately that Rainbow Six Siege needs to see a vast improvement. And many of the points that they talk about, I agree with across the board. But I feel like many people are taking this hashtag and almost taking it literally, and I don't really blame them, because when I think of #SaveSiege, if you need to save something, if you don't, it's gonna die, many people are then implying that the game is essentially dying, and I don't really agree with that. Maybe it's because I've been playing this game for as long as I have, all the way since the alpha, but I've been seeing the ups and downs, and the down part that I think a lot of people are in right now is nothing like what we were throughout the entire lifespan of this game. Now, that doesn't excuse the issues that we're currently dealing with right now, and they need to do things to address that, but to imply that Siege is dying, especially considering this last season, we've had the most people playing the game than ever before, at least according to the Steam charts, I think it's a bit naive to assume that the game is now slowly spiraling down and that no one wants to play anymore. I just don't think that's the case. With that said though, I do think that Ubisoft does need to do more to solve these problems. Probably the biggest issue right now is cheating, especially at those higher tiers. People are reporting that almost every other game they're encountering a cheater, which obviously is going to ruin the experience. And while cheating is always going to be a part of Siege, it's just a fact of life while playing on PC, that doesn't excuse the fact that it seems to take Ubisoft months on end to actually submit a big ban wave. And while Ubisoft has indicated that they are going to be working more with BattlEye, their anti-cheat company, to identify who these players are, I'm really crossing my fingers that it's going to be on a faster basis. Having to even wait just a couple of weeks for them to get removed from the game is too much, and I think that's the reason why people are so frustrated right now. Other than that, though, I honestly think that Rainbow Six Siege at its core is in a very solid state. We don't really have any big operators that are game-breaking and ruin the experience for everyone. Do people not remember what it was like when we had Lion, Blackbeard, Ella in their prime? Yeah, there are obviously some characters in the game right now that are causing some frustration. Ella's mine, you have Mozzie's gadget. There are some characters in this game that are definitely very powerful, but I don't think that they're defining the meta, and all you see is them constantly ruining the experience if you don't actually want to play or work around said meta. Yes, the visibility needs to improve. One of the biggest issues people are bringing up is that there are some uniforms and some maps where it just makes it impossible to be able to identify who you're going against or just see them quickly, and so they just have this massive advantage against you. But do you guys remember when you would look outside of a window many years ago and it would look like you were peering into the sun, or if you were on the outside looking in, it was like the void itself. You couldn't see anything at all. And so in general, while I realize I kind of bounced around all over the place there, I do agree with many of the points that pros and other YouTubers are making. A lot of these issues need to be solved, and I think this is something that Ubisoft needs to buckle down and try to address as soon as possible. But at the same time, I don't necessarily agree at all that the game is slowly dying by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, there are problems, but to say like the game is in like its worst state ever, like a lot of people are implying, especially when they're twisting this hashtag to mean something completely different, or at least I'm assuming that's what they're going for, that is where I don't agree. But obviously, that is just my 2 cents. The next question is, now that Battlefield 5 is no longer getting support, what do you want to see from the next Battlefield game? I want the next game to be in a modern setting, and honestly, I'd be kind of surprised if that wasn't the case, because anything other than modern, I think, is a bit of a risk for DICE, and I don't think that they can take those chances. I also want them to focus on the core gameplay, but also trying to make it feel more like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, where it's a much more of a sandbox experience. One of my favorite aspects about those games specifically was that it felt like you could approach any situation the way that you wanted to, and you had the tools to be able to do so. In Battlefield 4 in particular, you had an incredible amount of different weapons at your disposal and a lot of different attachments to be able to tailor it to your playstyle. You could make that weapon awful, you could try out different scopes, you literally had a 40 times optic on some of the recon class weapons, and you could use it if you wanted to. It was awful, it made the weapon horrendous, but it was at least at your fingertips. Having that kind of flexibility in the weapons, the attachments, and the vehicles, and then the maps that were designed around that made for an incredibly satisfying experience. On top of that though, and I know this is gonna sound kind of out there, I want the game to be well polished at release with plenty of content to justify its purchase price. And then if they want to go down that games as service route, and I hope that they will, to have that actual content after that be on a regular and continuous basis. One of the things that I have to praise the most recent Call of Duty Modern Warfare, even if you don't like its gameplay very much, is their live service platform. They're constantly coming out with new things to enjoy. Every couple of weeks it seems like you get a new game mode that switches things up, or they add in a new map, new weapons, they add a new change to Battle Royale. All of those things keep their player base happy, or at least coming back for more. And then you go look on over to Battlefield, and it seems like their live service is more of them trying to actually fix their game. The people that purchased it are more like beta testers, and then maybe every 6 months they get a brand new map. Like, the difference between these games is vast. And so what I want to see from the next Battlefield is a quality product at release, and then that kind of content directly after that. If you're going to provide a live service, then actually provide that. If that means you need to bring in fan favorite maps from previous Battlefield games because it takes you 6 months to make a brand new map from scratch, then do so. Obviously, continue to make those new maps on the side as well, because you want to bring in new content every once in a while, but I don't think your player base is going to be upset if all of a sudden Strike at CanCan from Battlefield 3 or Sharkey Peninsula or Grand Bazaar, all of these classic maps that people really enjoyed back in the day, saw it in the new updated assets of your brand new video game. I don't think they would complain about that. Having continuous content on a regular basis is something that I think needs to be done in this day and age for live services, and that is something that Battlefield 5 did not succeed at whatsoever. And so all in all, while I realize I'm asking for a lot, those are the things that I want to see from the next Battlefield game. The next question comes from Paul, and it is, what do you think about a future operator that has a passive ability of loyalty? He/she will not tell the location of the offensive team when Cav uses her ability. So passives are difficult because on the one hand, you could see this as a way for Ubisoft to try to lessen the influence or the power of an operator, or you could see them as just not needed and adds more bloating to the game. So for example, for the longest time, Echo was a counter. His passive was that Dokkaebi could not use her cameras and that she couldn't call him. That's a passive ability. But you could also argue that that was one way that Ubisoft tried to lessen the impact of Dokkaebi when she first came out, because they were probably worried that she didn't really have a whole lot of counters and that Echo was going to be that direct counter. So is that a passive or is that a design decision? When we move on over to Zofia and Ella though, that's where I start to have some issues. There is really no logical reason why Zofia should have the ability to withstand and get back up on her feet. It doesn't counter any other operator specifically. They didn't do it because they felt like someone was way too powerful, and Zofia, by doing this, would allow them to balance that out a little bit. It's like, no, she can just get up after she's downed because of reasons. That's where things kind of get more gray. And so, to get back to your point, if I thought another operator that was introduced had this loyalty ability, and Cav all of a sudden was way too strong, yeah, that doesn't seem too unreasonable. But then we kind of run into the issue later on, where what if Cav gets a really big nerf, and now this operator has this loyalty ability that doesn't really do a whole lot, but it also counters Cav almost entirely, and now she's even less powerful. So you kind of also have to take that into consideration. And so long story short, it's a tricky topic. On the one hand, I want to give Ubisoft the freedom to be able to balance their operators however they want. A long time ago, Vigil did not counter Lion. Now, when he activates his ability, he counters him directly. He can move around while Lion's drone is active. That all of a sudden just kind of became a passive ability of playing as Vigil. On the other hand though, I want them to be very cautious when they add in other passives like Zofia and Ella, because that's kind of where I start to draw the line. It's not to balance someone or kind of counter another operator. It really just all of a sudden is an added bonus for playing as that character, and that's where things kind of get a bit messy. The next question comes from Josh, and it is, what if Ubisoft gave Wamai access to all of his frisbees at the start of a round and possibly also made his gadget able to survive more than one flash? I think buffing Jaeger's only competition is the only way to effectively get his pick rate down. Well, I definitely disagree with the idea that the only way to bring down Jaeger's incredible win rate and pick rate is to buff another character that is his competition. Will that have an impact? Absolutely. People will start to gravitate on over and play as Wamai more, but it doesn't really get to the heart of the issue for why he is so powerful to begin with. And so I understand and also agree that Ubisoft needed to actually nerf Jaeger. At the same time, though, I would not be opposed to at least a couple of these ideas. I don't really necessarily think that one of his gadgets should be able to absorb a flash and then be okay after that, but I do think that allowing him to maybe have at least one more of his frisbees, as you stated, at the beginning of a round, maybe not all of them, would actually be a great idea. One of the things that can be a bit irritating when you play as Wamai is that you feel like you're anchored to the objective. If you move around, even though you're 2 armor, 2 speed, because you generate his gadget every so often, you have to come back to the objective where it's going to be most needed, and so you basically kind of have to plant your feet the entire match. Not the entire round, because the last minute you don't generate anymore, but you kind of understand where I'm coming from. And so if you had just one more at the beginning of a round that he could quickly place and then move around the map to where he wanted to, that would give him a little bit more flexibility, and I think that that would make him a more enjoyable operator. The reason why I don't think that they should really do more than that is that if we take a look at his stats, at least to my understanding, he's a fairly well-balanced operator. He's right relatively where he should be. His win rate and his pick rate are halfway decent. And so while a small improvement to his quality of life I think would be nice, I don't think that they need to make a dramatic change to all of a sudden now make him one of the more overpowered operators in the game. I don't really think that that is the best way of going about it. But yeah, guys, that is what it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you think that Rainbow Six Siege needs saving? What do you think Ubisoft needs to do to try to improve the game? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.